people who kind of say that their lives are happy, that they are happy, are more likely to describe themselves as takers. So this idea that happiness is kind of associated with, self-focus, even selfish behavior, whereas people who
and when you say takers, you're talking about Adam Grant's distinction between givers and takers.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah. Thanks for that.
And so givers being people who are essentially more altruistic with their time and energy, whereas takers sort of intuitively are people who are happy to get altruistic behavior aimed at them, but aren't giving it back. So you're saying that happy people in this study were more of the taker type.
Yeah, so they found that the happy life was more associated with being a taker, and that the meaningful life was more associated with being a giver. And just one of the, they asked kind of the participants all these different questions about how they spend their time, and one of them was, how do you spend your money? And so the happy life is kind of more associated with buying gifts for yourself, buying things for yourself, whereas the meaningful life was more about kind of buying things for others and getting gifts for others. So that's kind of a concrete example. And that really, I thought that was kind of provocative, actually, because our culture is so happiness focused, and yet I think we would agree that we probably want to live in a world where most people are givers instead of takers, and so it suggested to me, well, maybe this goal of happiness isn't the right goal. Maybe meaning is what we should be kind of building our lives around and focusing our lives on. So that was one study. Another study that I thought kind of drove home the importance of meaning in a good life, and there's actually a series of studies related to this, and it's basically about death and approaching death. And when they're psychologists and psychiatrists who study people with terminal cancer, for example, find that many of them are depressed and hopeless, and they are even kind of suicidal and are hoping that they die soon because they have this terminal cancer diagnosis, and they feel like they're they feel despair, basically, and a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear as they approach death, this unknown, this kind of end to everything that they know and love.
Sure.
And one researcher who's based at Johns Hopkins University, I think you're familiar with his work, David, Roland Griffiths.
Yeah, he was on this show a few months ago. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, maybe you talk about this study, but he's done all kinds of work about how kind of major transcendent experiences, a spiritual kind of mountaintop experience, but which he induces in the lab with psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, how those very meaningful moments can kind of transform someone's life. And one of the groups that he's looked at are terminal cancer patients. And the question that he and his colleagues were asking in this study is, can a major transcendent experience, in other words, a very meaningful experience, diminish kind of the natural fear and anxiety that we have approaching death? And I spoke to one of the women who was in that study, and
oh, wow.
And it turned out that she was somebody who, when she received her diagnosis, just felt like, in her words, like she was in the wasteland and just really, depressed and adrift, and was spiritual, but didn't really have, any kind of deep belief in an afterlife that might give her hope and consolation as she approached death. But after she had this transcendent experience in the lab, she came out and just felt this sense of peacefulness with respect to her own death. And she, because these experiences can be kind of ineffable, difficult to describe, she didn't really have the words to explain why, but she did say, like, during that experience, I felt connected to something much bigger. And I realized that, as I was breathing in and out, she said that, if I stop breathing, then that's okay. I'm okay with that. And it was just this kind of moment of insight that she had, which resulted from this meaningful experience that made her feel at peace with the fact that she will die. And I thought that was pretty powerful.